Very pleased to rise today to speak on the private member's motion moved by my colleague, the member for Moreton. Deputy Speaker, in recent times there's been a lot of discussion and debate about the opportunities and the prospects for baby boomers and the millennials. The nature of the debate at times has become a case of resentment and blame by one group for the other, and understandably so, as millennials face mounting burdens of cost associated with getting an education, a lack of affordability of university and TAFE education and training, mounting debt for university graduates, and then, of course, difficulties of finding employment, and even, as we've heard on many occasions, the difficulty, almost impossibility of buying a house. Deputy Speaker, young people today point to the generations before them and feel aggrieved. Many refer to even my own generation as the lucky generation. Of course, Deputy Speaker, my generation and others before me did start off from a very low base and had to fight for all our rights for a lot of things, including affordable education. Deputy Speaker, education is the building block to every Australian's life. It's what gives us the ability to function and to contribute in our modern society and to build our nation's social cohesion and prosperity. Without access to an affordable and relevant education system, my generation at a critical time in our post-Second World War nation building may never have realised its full potential and therefore go on to make the contribution that it has. Affordable education and the opportunities it affords was vital for my generation, and it's absolutely important and vital to our generation today. Labor's understanding of education as the great enabler is marked by some of the greatest and most significant reforms by successive Labor governments since the Whitlam government swept into power in 1972. The most recent landmark reform in education in Australia came again from the Rudd-Gillard Labor governments with the Gonski funding reforms. In commencing the 46th Parliament, we enter the third consecutive term of a coalition government. An assessment of this government's record and education and training is what the member for Moreton's motion aims to do, and this motion, in great detail, Deputy Speaker, lays bare the extent to which and the impact of the Coalition's cuts to schools, universities and TAFEs, cuts that have resulted in the future opportunities of young Australians being curtailed by the inability of the government to address the educational needs of Australian students. For almost 7 years now, Australian school children are either learning or earning through a school, tertiary or vocational education system, suffering from the underinvestment because of significant cuts, leaving young people in despair about their future employment prospects. Of course, some of the coalition government's achievements or underachievements in relation to cuts do include the slashing of $30 billion over the past decade from projected school funding. Literacy and numeracy in Australia in school children has fallen. There hasn't really been any action from government to improve school standards. The dismantling of our TAFE system has led to vet students paying for a lot more courses, apprenticeships and on-the-job trainings have declined, and capping university places, and all around the basic failure of the government to address these issues has meant that the people in my electorate have been very adversely affected. Now, Cornwall, Deputy Speaker, continues to be home to a large number of old and new migrant communities. My constituents, like generations before them, rely on an education system that is affordable and accessible, and one that is relevant to the demands and requirements of today's society. Coming largely from non-English speaking migrants and refugee backgrounds, like my generation before them, my constituents need to have access, and access is the key word, access to the best quality education if they are to realise their potential and go on to make their contribution. It is, after all, something that we keep encouraging them to do, especially during citizenship ceremonies. We value education highly in Cornwall, and we aspire to give ourselves and our children the best possible opportunities. And at a time when globalisation has challenged us both with opportunities and possibilities, but also with changes that have left many people behind. The coalition government's years of cuts and neglect have been detrimental to my community. That is also, by the way, experiencing a youth unemployment rate of, in some cases, 25%. Evidence, Deputy Speaker, of this government's neglect and lack of preparedness in the findings of a recently released report from the Productivity Commission, which recommends that the school system needs to greater prepare young people with stronger literacy and numeracy skills so they can succeed at university or broadly in the Australian community.
Question is